So, I've got to be a confession here. I was a bit hesitant to actually watch The British Office because I'm such a huge fan of The American Office. Honestly, it's like my favourite comedy TV show of all time. So much that I actually my very own Michael Scott Funko Pop there. I don't know how well you can see it, but yeah, I absolutely just love The American Office. But I knew one day that I would sit down to watch The British Office. And so, here's my review of that very show. The British Office. Now, The British Office is the brainchild of Rick Gervais and Stephen Merchant, who subsequently went on to go and make Extras, which I'm a huge fan of, and Cemetery Junction, which I think is a gem of a film. And they also had success in their own separate careers after they parted ways. Like Rick Gervais went to go and sign Ghost Town, which I think is really enjoyable. He did make The Invention of Lying, which I'm not the biggest fan of. However, he redeemed himself with Afterlife, which I absolutely love. And at the same time though, Stephen Merchant also made The Outlaws, which I thought was great as well, which I only just finished watching about a week ago. I really liked that show. But this was the thing that kind of started off their careers. It was the thing that kind of made them famous, because this show won BAFTAs, it won Golden Globes, back when the Golden Globes was still important. Honestly, The British Office was huge when it was out, and it's still huge today because of all the remakes from all the different countries. Like The American Office, there's been loads of different versions, and so on and so on and so on. And so it's such a famous show, and I knew one day that I'll sit down to watch it because I'm a fan of Rick Gervais and Stephen Merchant. In fact, one thing I haven't mentioned yet is I actually religiously listen to the Rick Gervais and Stephen Merchant and Carl Pilkington XFM podcast daily. Honestly, I listen to that podcast all the time. I really do. I absolutely love it. I must have listened to the XFM Rick Gervais podcast like a million times. That's not even an exaggeration. Honestly, I must listen to them about a million times. I love them so much, and I also love, Rick Gervais and Steve Merchant's other work outside of The Office as well. I love their work with Extras, Cemetery Junction, and so on and so on and so on. So I knew one day I would sit down to watch the show, and eventually I did that. And wow, I can't believe how good it is. And also, how different it is in The American Office. And that's coming from someone who absolutely adores The American Office, by the way. I love The American Office. Like I said in the intro to this video today, it's like my favourite comedy TV show of all time. I absolutely love it. But the thing is though, this show is its own thing. But before I get into why it's its own thing, it does also share some similarities with The American Office as well. Like, the plot is quite similar and the characters are quite similar as well. You still have the whole scenario based in a paper company. And you still got the annoying boss, which in The American Office is Michael Scott, brilliantly portrayed by Steve Carell. But here in The British Office is David Brent, brilliantly, and I mean brilliantly, played by Rick Gervais. And then at the same time though, you still got the two colleagues which are infatuated with each other but won't do anything about their love of one another, which in The American Office is Jim and Pam, and in this show is Tim and Dawn. And then you also have the annoying desk mate, which in The American Office is Dwight, and in The British Office is Gareth. And honestly, even with all those similarities though, they still feel different. And I love both shows, I really do. I love The British Office and I adore The American Office. Honestly, like I said before, it's still my favourite comedy TV show of all time. Even so I've seen The British Office now, The American Office is still my favourite comedy. But the thing is though, The British Office is its own thing. Like, the comedy in The British Office, the comedy in this series, it's much more subtle, it's much more subdued. It's that kind of comedy that gets under your skin and you're laughing before you even realise it. Honestly, I watched all 2 seasons and the 2 Christmas specials of the show, and I've rewatched quite a few episodes now, and I will start laughing and not even realise I'm laughing because it's so funny in such a good way. But the thing is though, if you watch The American Office, the comedy is a bit more on the nose, it's a bit more straightforward, it's a bit more like it's actually trying to make its audience laugh. And by the way, that's not a criticism, by the way. I adore The American Office, I adore the comedy in that show, but I also adore the comedy in The British Office because they're quite different. The comedy in both shows is quite different because obviously The American Office is aimed more on American audiences, but at the same time, though, the British Office is aimed more at UK audiences. But the thing is, though, oddly enough, the UK Office, went on to go and win Golden Globes, like I said before, when the Golden Globes were still important. It had huge success around the world. But the comedy in the American Office, like I said before, is more on the nose. Like in the American Office, you have the talking head interviews, but they're like every 30 seconds. In the British Office, you still got those talking head interviews, but they're every 5 minutes. Both versions of the show are shot in a mockumentary format, where it's like a documentary but kind of mocking the whole thing it's kind of presenting. But, like I said before, in the British Office, you have a talking head every 5 minutes, and it's more subtle, and the comedy is more like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm laughing, but the thing is, though, I am. But in the American Office, you can kind of hear the joke coming from a mile away, and that's not a criticism, by the way. I love the comedy in the American Office, but the thing is, though, in the American Office, you can tell when you're meant to laugh, and maybe you can tell when you're not meant to. That's what I'm trying to say there. I don't know if I can explain myself the best, but in the American Office, the comedy's more straightforward, whilst in the British Office, the comedy is more subtle and more subdued. Honestly, I love the whole American sitcom format of the American Office. I really like some American sitcoms like Frasier, Friends, Parks and Recreation, Simpsons, and so on and so on and so on. But the thing is, though, in the American Office, there's just something about it which makes you love it on another level. But the British Office is just, it's something on itself. It's genius. The writing is so on point and so clever. Rick Gervais and Stephen Merchant, since writing The Office, have kind of cultivated this way of writing where it's kind of like a dramedy, where basically it's like a comedy and a drama mixed together. And that's first manifested in The Office. It really is. Like, as much as you laugh in the British Office, as funny as it is, towards the end of the show, especially with the last two Christmas specials, it becomes more of a drama, but that's not a criticism whatsoever. The same thing kind of happened with Extras as well, which is another show written by Rick Gervais and Stephen Merchant, and basically the last episode of that show, which is also a Christmas special, is more of a drama than a comedy in my opinion, but again, not in a bad way. And obviously, Rick Gervais and Stephen Merchant separately went on to go like Afterlife and Outlaws, and I think those shows in particular are both great examples of dramedies, where basically it's like a dramedy and a comedy mixed together, but not in a bad way. I really like those shows, and I really like the way it's mixed together in this show. You feel sympathy for the characters, and you don't even realise it. But the funny thing is about David Brent is he's like the most annoying boss in the world. He's even more annoying than Michael Scott in the American Office. Steve Carell plays Michael Scott so well in the American Office, and that is such an annoying character. But David Brent, played by Rick Gervais in the British Office, is far more annoying. But the funny thing is with the British Office is by the end of the show, you start to root for the character, and you don't even realise you're doing that. You start to feel sympathy for him. I love that about this show. I love the fact that a character like that, who's that egotistical, who's that full of himself, and yet is that kind of, rewarding and that kind of person you want to root for. I love that sort of writing where, like I said before, it kind of gets under your skin. Again, I'm probably explaining myself quite badly there. But the thing is, though, with the whole David Brent character, you don't really like him. You just find him so annoying and so hard to watch and so cringeworthy to watch. But the thing is, though, towards the end of the British Office, you're rooting for him. And that's such an odd feeling. And then, in the last episode, where it says, fuck off and pardon my friendship, but in the last episode, where it says, fuck off to one of the people in the office, you feel that sense of, oh yes, go on David Brent. And I don't know how Rick Gervais and Steve Merchant did that, but you feel sympathy and you feel like you want David Brent to win in the end. And that is just such clever writing, it really is. And I just love that. Like, as much as I love the Michael Scott character in the American Office, and by the way, I'm comparing the British Office to the American Office a lot here, but that's because I love both shows. I'm not doing it in a demeaning way to either shows, I love them both. But the thing is, though, in the American Office, you have the character Michael Scott, and you're deliberately meant to feel sympathy for him when season 2 begins, because the whole character was written differently. And again, that's not a criticism, I love the way the Michael Scott character is written in that show. But in this show, that sort of sympathy for David Brent gets under your skin and you're rooting for him before you even realise it. And I just think the writing from Rick Gervais and Stephen Merchant on the character of David Brent is just so brilliant. And at the same time, the same kind of happens with the Tim and Dawn relationship. Because in the American Office, you have the Jim and Pam relationship, and that's more played into that show a bit more. In the American Office, the Jim and Pam relationship is the centre of the show, and you can really feel that. And again, that's not a criticism of that show. I love that whole part of the show. But in the British Office, the Tim and Dom relationship is still the heart of the show, but it's not played in as much. You don't really realise it's the heart of the show until you get to those big moments in that relationship. And I just think that works so well. Honestly, it's that sort of comedy and that sort of writing which gets under your skin, but in the best way possible. You know, it's the same with Extras and with Cemetery Junction. I mean, I don't think Cemetery Junction and Extras is as well written as this show, as the British Office, but I do still think that, you know, Rick Gervais and Stephen Merchant's writing styles are clearly portrayed in Extras and Cemetery Junction quite well. The whole sense of a dramedy, the whole sense of a comedy and a drama perfectly mixed together is first manifested at the end of the British Office. In fact, in quite a lot of the British Office, and then it's carried over into Extras, and it's carried over in Cemetery Junction in a great way as well, in my opinion. And also, the show is realistic, and you never feel like you're watching the actors play characters. Like, Martin Freeman plays Tim in the show. And the thing is, though, I'm a huge fan of Martin Freeman. I really like him in the stuff I've seen him in. I really like him as Bilbo Baggins in the Hobbit films. I really like him in the Sherlock TV show. I like him in the Marvel films, even the Marvel films I'm not the biggest fan of, but the ones he's appeared in. And also, I've seen him in other stuff which I can't think of off the top of my head right now, like The World's End. I really like him in The World's End as well. But yes, I'm a huge fan of Martin Freeman. But the thing is, though, when he's in the show, I never feel like I'm watching him. I just feel like I'm watching the character he's playing. You know, that whole sense of verisimilitude. And if you don't know what that word is, look it up. But it's that whole sense of verisimilitude in this show which really makes it work. You never like watching Martin Freeman play Tim. You never like watching Mackenzie Davis play Garth. And I've seen Mackenzie Davis in the Pirates of the Caribbean films, but I never felt like I was watching Mackenzie Davis play Garth. I just felt like I was watching that character. And that's the same with Rick Gervais as David Brent. You know, as much as I love Rick Gervais in Afterlife and in Ghost Town and in various other things like Extras and so on and so on and so on, in this show, I never feel like I'm watching Rick Gervais. I feel like I'm watching David Brent, and just in the best way possible. Honestly, I could go on and on about David Brent and how much I love the way they wrote that character, because it's so realistic. And there's this whole thing with his character where, like, actions have consequence. I mean, with all the characters in the British Office. Because, like, as much as I love the American Office, and I feel like I'm kind of criticising it quite a bit here, but the thing is, though, I adore the American Office. I really do. It's like my favourite comedy of all time. It still is. But as much as I love the American Office, in that show, you know, in reality, by season 4 of the American Office, every single character in that show would have been fired from the paper company in real life in the American Office. But in this show, you know, actions have consequences. And I'm not going to give away what happens in the British Office, but there's certain twists with the David Brent character which I didn't see coming. You know, it's a whole thing with actions have consequences. And actually, they did something which really caught me off guard with the whole David Brent character in the British Office, which I thought was just such brilliant writing. Again, you may have guessed what I'm talking about, but it's a whole thing of actions have consequences, and maybe David Brent can actually keep his job at the paper company throughout the show. I'm not going to give much away there because you haven't seen it, but if you haven't seen it, you know, it is 21 years old, the show. You know, the show finished like 21 years ago, and I'm pretty sure it finished in 2001. But yes, there's a whole thing of actions have consequences, and then when you watch the David Brent storyline, you really feel that. As much as I love all the characters in the American Office, maybe it's not as realistic as it sets out to be, but the British Office is, and I kind of like that, I do. And the funny thing is, again, I feel like I'm criticising the American Office. I'm not. I love that show. I love how outlandish it is. I love how fun it is. But the British Office is more realistic, and I really like that. I mean, I've never worked in an office myself, but there's certain social interactions between certain characters in the show which reminded me of my own social interactions in the past. And sometimes not in a good way, because I'm watching like, oh no, this is like what happened to me a couple of years ago. But at the same time, though, sometimes in a really, really funny way. And I really, really like that about it. I love the realism, which on the surface might be a criticism for some people, but isn't a criticism for me. I really like the realism, I really like the verisimilitude. Again, if you don't know what it is, look it up. But yes, I really like the fact that the show is realistic, and you believe in all the characters, and the fact is, it's just so well written. It is genius, because this show spawned so many other shows. Even so, I do like the American Office more. You know, the American Office wouldn't exist without this show. And I love that about it. I love the fact that this was the show which spawned all of its cousins. Like, there's been so many versions of The Office. And the thing is, though, you know, this version of The Office, the British version of The Office, has spawned all these different versions of the show. And I just love that about it, because like I said before, The American Office is my favourite TV show of all time. It's my favourite comedy TV show of all time, actually. But The American Office wouldn't exist without the British Office. And I do think the British Office is absolutely brilliant. I just think it's fantastic. You know, I'm rewatching episodes from it right now. In fact, I actually one episode paused my TV before this review today because I just enjoy watching. I shouldn't enjoy watching actually, because I spoke to my parents who watched the show when it came out all those years ago when it was initially coming out, and they said they just found it so cringeworthy to watch and so hard to watch. But actually, I quite enjoy watching it, partly because there's David Brent cards, because I love him so much, and I really shouldn't, but I do. But also just because it's Rick Gervais and Stephen Merchant comedy, and I really like that sort of comedy. And like I said before, earlier on this review, you know, I absolutely love the Rick Gervais, Stephen Merchant and Carl Pilkington podcast, the XFM podcast that they did on Spotify. I listen to them so much. I listen to them daily, at least twice a day, honestly. I adore those podcasts. And then you listen to the sort of humour in those podcasts, and it's a similar sort of humour in this show, and I just love that. I love the humour of this show, and I love that this humour is carried over into extras, and I love the humour of extras as well, and I love the humour and the sort of drama aspects of Symmetry Junction. I love that this show's a dramedy as well, and it influenced some of the other dramedies going forward, like Afterlife and like The Outlaws, which Rick Gervais and Stephen Merchant did, you know, separately but respectively. I really like that about this show. I think it's genius because it just really captures that whole sense of a dramedy perfectly. And this is all coming from someone who's never worked in an office in my life. I've never worked in one, but man alive, this show is realistic. Just his social interactions and the way the characters are written, it just all feels realistic, and it feels really awkward to watch, but in the best way possible, and that is why I like it so much. Honestly, I think it's genius, and I'm rewatching it right now. I enjoyed it so much, and I think the last two episodes in particular, by the way, the two Christmas specials, are absolutely excellent, especially the last episode. Honestly, in the last episode, I literally want to stand up and cheer in a couple of moments, but yeah, I think it's absolutely fantastic. And yes, I prefer The American Office a bit more, but bear in mind, The American Office had 7 seasons of solid, proper, really good comedy, and it actually ran for 9 seasons. And even so, I had my big problems with the 9th season of The American Office, it ran for 9 seasons, and I think The American Office really did an absolutely fantastic finale. But the British Office only ran for 2 seasons, 2 6-episode seasons and 2 Christmas specials. So it ran for a lot less, and the fact is though, I would still say it's very close to actually being on the same level as The American Office. I love The American Office. I absolutely adore it. I really do. But I'm going to be honest, The British Office is not far away in terms of quality. And that's saying something. Seeing as, you know, The British Office only ran for 2 6-episode seasons and 2 Christmas specials, and The American Office ran for 9 seasons. And the fact is though, I think The British Office is a very good runner-up to The American Office. But nevertheless, I love them both. I really do. And I adore this show. I adore The British Office. I adore the writing. I adore the performances. And I absolutely love it. And I also love the music, by the way. I love, Handbags and Gladbags. I forgot the song's called. Something like that. I probably mispronounced it horribly there, but it's something like that. And I adore the opening title song. And I just adore the show overall. I could go on and on about how much I love it, and I have already. And I just think it is absolutely genius. And so, all in all, I'm going to say The British Office. I'm going to say that it's a 9 out of 10. Honestly, I love it. I really do. And the thing is though, you know, a lot of people compare The British Office to The American Office, like I have done in this review today. But in the end, you can love them both. You can love them both. And I love this version of The Office so much. It's like when people compare Batman. You know, you can love all the Batman there have been. You can love all the Spider-Man there have been. And you can love all the versions of The Office there's been. And I love The American Office, and I love The British Office. And so it's fine to love variations of the same thing. That's fine. You know, I love The American Office. I adore that show to pieces. But I also love The British Office. I love this show. I love the way it's written. I love how the humour gets under your skin. I love how the emotion gets under your skin. And I just think it's so well written. And I just think it's proper British comedy. You know, maybe I love this show so much because I'm from the UK. And I really like that sort of comedy. I really like British humour. I've seen so many British comedies in the past. Quite a lot of them off the top of my head, actually, written by Rick Gervais and Stephen Merchant, that I absolutely love. But nevertheless, I've seen quite a few British comedies in the past that I adore, and this is also on that same list. But at the same time, I've seen quite a lot of American comedies in the past which I absolutely adore, like The Simpsons, like Frasier, like Friends, and like The American Office. You can love both types of comedies, and you know what? The Office is evidence of that. Even so, I sat down to do this review today, intending to do a full-on review of the British Office, and not to compare to the American Office much. I found that whilst I was doing the review, I was comparing to the American Office more than I was intending to, but that's not a bad thing. You can love them both, and I love them both. But on the topic of the British Office, I absolutely adore it. I think it's genius, and I think it's such good writing, and I think possibly it's Rick Gervais and Stephen Merchant's best work as well. And I adore their podcast, and though I wouldn't really say that's their work, it's just them randomly talking. Honestly, the Rick Gervais and Stephen Merchant podcast, if you haven't listened to it, it is just like three people talking in a pub. It is just kind of like Rick Gervais, Stephen Merchant, and Carl Pilkington talking in a pub together, but that's kind of why I love the podcast so much. But at the same time though, I love extras as well, and I love Cemetery Junction. But I must admit, I do think that this is their best work today. And I just think it's absolutely brilliant, and it really caught me off guard, because I didn't think I was going to like it. I thought me watching The American Office was going to ruin my liking of this show. But actually, it kind of made me like it a bit more. And you know what? I'm really happy it did. And so, all in all, I absolutely love The British Office, and I'm going to say that it's a 9 out of 10 from me. Anyway guys, what do you think of the British Office? Please do comment down below and know your thoughts in the comment section below. Anyway guys, thank you as always for watching, and if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like subscribe on this video, and look forward to many more both film and TV reviews come very soon on this channel. See you guys again soon, but bye for now, bye!